Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is, I think, kind of maybe, at the very least, like a cameo from a character that was once on the show, on the season, on the series, whatever, that has returned. It is sort of the NFC East Mixtape, BLG. How goes it?
RJ, long time, no podcast. So, it's funny to take people behind the curtain here.
Okay.
As we do. I really don't talk to you a lot anymore. It's not like, hey, I'm sure, if anyone's ever wondering about that, I wonder if RJ and Brandon talk outside of the show. It's not that we never talk, but we definitely don't talk as much as we did when we actually used to podcast together regularly, which, to be clear, no lack of desire to do that on our end, just so people know. Not really, something we just decided to stop doing ourselves. But we also do appreciate the people who have missed it and voiced that.
Yeah, it's been individually, like relative to the team that I cover, it's been a very weird 2024. Just kind of everything happening with the Cowboys and the podcast and the mixtape, and appreciating the feedback that everybody had to offer, obviously. And while I don't want to in any way, I don't know what the opposite of thank is, besmirch or poo-poo, but I don't want to do that to anyone. But what I will say is, because it is something that we want to do, kind of annoying to still get the where's the mixtape questions. Like, your question's as good as ours. I mean, we definitely want to do this. I don't want to speak for you, Brandon, but we want to do this on a regular basis, and so that remains the goal. That has always been the goal. Mm-hmm. And just for full context, this is, we're going to call it an episode of the mixtape, but it's not, or it is. Again, it's kind of halfway in between. It is up on the Belong on the Boys YouTube channel, and we're going to see if we can get it on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel. And if you can also offer the specifics on the audio side of things, because I know that there is a home for that this week, at least.
Yeah, we have some former BGN podcast contributors over at the Eagles Pin Pool Network. Shane Half and Johnny Page. Obviously, Johnny Page does a lot of good film breakdowns at Bleeding Green Nation. A lot of people recognize his name, certainly on our end. Also planning to have the audio posted there, which maybe you're listening to. So you already know that, but in case you were maybe on the YouTube version and wanted to go find that there, just a bonus. We're not, as of right now, it's not a regular full-time thing, again, as we'd like it to be, but there is that for now.
Okay, so we just actually cannot cover everything. It's impossible. So I have a proposed template for this pseudo episode of the mixtape, and also to Brandon's point about how very little we talk. And I think Brandon's awesome. It's just we're busy.
That's right.
But so we haven't discussed this at all. We haven't run anything by each other. We just said, let's record on Wednesday. And that's what we're doing. So do you want to hear my proposed template and see if you agree with it or disagree?
We have to go in divisional order. We have to start with the
Commanders. No. Obviously, we have to go into. Well, I'm fine going in divisional order.
No, we can't do that. It's an Eagles-Cowboys week. We have to talk about this game.
Well, I actually think it should only be Eagles-Cowboys discussion.
Sure.
So then that amends my proposal.
Well, maybe some closing thoughts.
Sure. So that kind of amends my proposal. My proposal is then the 10 things episode.
Sure.
So 10 things, you get 5, I get 5. You can make all 5 of yours about the Cowboys, and things, they're bullet points, whatever, questions if you want to bring up, to raise, whatever. But we kind of riff through 10 different data points relative to these two teams. You get 5, I get 5. You can go first, or I can go first if you want, because I sprung this on you at the moment. But
you go first.
Okay, so again, it could be about Eagles or Cowboys. Again, so it could be like a vent thing to get your perspective on a Cowboys thing, or whatever. My thing is about the Eagles, and I really am so sad that we didn't have the mixtape so that I could come on here and jump on the Howie Roseman just reads Daniel Jeremiah's mock drafts, and that's why everybody thinks he's a good general manager. I would have had so much fun with that. I'm also very sad that Russell Wilson is good again, and I haven't been able to impersonate him a single time. We did talk about that, to be clear, but my Eagles thing is they might make signing veteran free agent running backs a thing again. The Saquon Barkley thing has worked out beautifully, perfectly, wonderfully, especially for the we are people. I know that you are not. And it is highly annoying. And I'm so annoyed at the Cowboys because they have broken me so much that I don't even have the energy to like be mad about it. You know what I'm saying? Like the only energy I have is to analyze it and just assess it and say, oh, this made a lot of sense. It was really smart. Good for the Eagles. Well done.
Saquon's been unreal, obviously. I was not high on the signing. I didn't think he would be terrible. I just didn't think he would be worth it. I thought he'd just be kind of like fine.
Because no running back could be. Like none could be for any team ever. Like that was the thing.
And I think even the most like optimistic people about his signing would have to admit he's been even better than they possibly realistically could have expected. I mean, like it was just one play, but that play like basically encapsulates how unreal he's been for the Eagles this season when he has that catch on third down short of the sticks against the Jags, jukes a defender, spins out of the way of another, and then does the most insane thing I've probably ever seen a player try to do on a football field where he like reverse jumped over someone. Like watching that live, I just started laughing. I was like, I didn't even know what to say. Nick Sirianni didn't know what to say after the game. It's like, how do you even give commentary or analysis on that play? That's just unreal. And his numbers this season have been unreal. He's NFC Offensive Player of the Week for the third time this year in 8 games. He had that award 3 times, the same amount with the Giants in 74 games over 6 seasons. Like he's been unreal. He should honestly, he won't win MVP, but he's in that kind of conversation if you're talking about the top candidates. And I don't know if he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year because Derrick Henry's been so unreal, but he's right there. And if Henry stumbles or gets hurt or whatever, misses some time, Saquon is suddenly the front runner for that award. So Saquon's been unreal, and basically in every way too. Like as a runner, as a runner, as like a big play threat, as a runner when short yardage, getting the tough yards, as a pass catcher, like as a pass blocker, literally anything you could want from Saquon Barkley, he's given you. There have been some like. He had the drop against the Falcons. They lose that game. He's had the fumble in this game, which I don't really agree was a fumble. There's been some weird down moments, but like, I mean, it's very much a net positive.
He had the huge coming out party, obviously, in the opener in Brazil. And I was so excited because this was before I was like fully broken. But I was so excited during the Monday night loss to the Falcons, which I also would have had a field day with the Jason Kelsey stuff. Like it was so over the top. It was so ridiculous. Again, I'm just trying to vomit everything I can, and make up for lost time. But I was so excited that it was going to be like the break point and the flash point or whatever. And it wasn't. And he's been insane. I mean, he really has. You mentioned the big plays. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Eagles probably lose to the Saints without Saquon. I mean, like that play at the very end, kind of like if this team, is a 12-win team or a 13-win team, like you can argue that obviously there's a lot of games left to go, but like you could argue he has literally pulled games from the jaws of defeat. And obviously the Saints have kind of fallen off since then. I do want to say, like, while we're on this subject, that I've seen a lot, and if I was a Giants fan, I would probably be stirring the pot on this, but I think it was the right move. It's really unfortunate for the Giants that this is blown up like directly in their face, but it made sense. Now, it only actually makes sense if they move forward properly, which they have yet to completely and totally do. But I said many times on the mixtape that it made sense to pay Daniel Jones what they did when they did. So, like, there's so much reverse bagging happening on the Giants. And my only point with that is, like, you don't need to reverse bag. There's enough to bag right now on the Giants. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're making the bagging ineffective by reverse bagging instead of properly presently bagging. So that was my first thing.
It didn't make sense because they made other bad decisions, right? Like that's really why it didn't make sense to keep him. Like if they made other good decisions and
let's move on. We got to move on to things.
Then it would have made more sense. Just a quick point on that.
Okay, you're up.
All right. Why don't we talk about the guy that? Before last season, we had a big debate. It was like, no, Nick Sirianni's better than Mike McCarthy. We're both like making the case for the coach of the team we cover, and I think by the end of the year, we're like, this guy sucks. They should fire this guy. Why is he still here? So really a long journey with him. Look, I know how you already feel about like the biggest culprit when it comes to the Cowboys, why they're this bad is what you were saying all offseason. What we were saying all offseason before we stopped podcasting is the front office, Jerry Jones specifically, didn't do anything basically to help the team out. Now, that being said, Mike McCarthy still has to make chicken salad out of chicken, what, and he has to make the most of the situation he's given, and that's what good coaches do. That's what Mike Tomlin, typically like why he gets so much credit. Vic Fangio with Eagles defense right now, like you do more with less, and it's obviously impossible, I think, to argue Mike McCarthy has done that here. So, I mean, he seems like a dead man walking, very much. So I want you to confirm that. And then also,
okay,
who do you want the Cowboys coach to be next year?
So one of our favorite sayings around here, like if we had a studio and we had like signs and things like that, like one of them would be like a funny font that would say multiple things can be true.
More than one thing can be true.
The verbiage was always multiple things.
No, it's I have the shirt from Holden got me two shirts.
Well, Holden made it wrong.
More than one thing could be true. No,
also, I want to use Holden as an example. I love really all of you Eagles fans, but for those of you who think that like trolling me or other Cowboys fans about the team is going to get what you want, I really actually regret to inform you like it won't. But like we hate this team more than you do. So I mean, I'm hopeful that we can one day reach a point where we hate each other, like, completely, but that's just not where we're at right now, like you and I. But that being said, a cousin on the more than one thing can be true thing is that things could have been true that are now no longer true. And I do believe that Mike McCarthy made chicken salad in 2020 as an example. And if you recall, I gave him a lot of props then because at the time we had never seen in the 21st century, really, with franchise quarterbacks, a Cowboys head coach, granted the one was Jason Garrett, make chicken salad when the quarterback was lost due to injury. I mean, the Cowboys somewhat rallied in 2020, and obviously the Commanders or the football team won that division with a below 500 record at the time. And the Cowboys rallied to be in the mix with Andy Dalton under center, which was, again, a huge growth from the staff that preceded him. So we've seen regression there. And I maintain everything that I said about McCarthy and defended him for, because he has to date done things, granted, well in the past now, that had not happened throughout this entire drought, which is embarrassingly long. That doesn't mean he's amazing, but it is context that is necessary. Now, I agree with you, obviously, and myself, that the Cowboys set him up rather poorly this offseason. And not only set him up poorly from a, variable standpoint, but stirred the pot. Like made everything chaotic and toxic and dramatic and challenged him, forced him to live and operate through that. I've asked this all the time, obviously. What I would have done at the time, you either had to extend him or fire him, obviously, after they lost to the Packers. And people say now, like, extend him? What, are you stupid? Like, again, my argument was, I even told you that they had to fire him, but you had to do one or the other to avoid this. And if you had extended him, then guess what? If you were still right here, right now in the exact same situation, you could fire him. It's just money. And it's just like, now you can actually throw the like richest franchise in the world thing out, because then it would literally be, oh, all you have to do is set money on fire and you have all of it. So who cares at that point in time? But they set him up poorly. They brought back Mike Zimmer and acted like that was a big old deal. And people actually fell for that carrot. And I can't believe it. They brought back
you
Zeke.
did too. You wanted Mike. You thought Mike Zimmer would be an upgrade over Dan Quinn.
I wanted Mike, and I was out on Dan Quinn. I wanted Mike Zimmer over Ron Rivera and Rex Ryan, who were the only serious options. But you can check any tape you want.
Ron Rivera. I told you all along.
No,
he's better than Mike McCarthy.
We don't have the time. We don't have the time to explore all of the tangents. Okay, so they brought back Zeke, and I was going to give you credit. You threw that out as a joke last year, and they actually did it. I mean, like,
I was very happy when they did that.
I mean, so this whole thing has been dead on arrival. And yeah, I can't imagine why he would be back at this point in time. A lot of people think like, oh, you got to fire him after the Falcons loss, right? No, I mean, like, and not that I wouldn't, but they're not going to pay him not to coach. Are you kidding me? Like, you think they're going to do some actual work? You know what I mean? Like, they're just here to ride this thing out. And yeah, they'll interview whoever. In an ideal world, I want Ben Johnson. I don't think that happens, because Ben Johnson is probably going to want to call plays and want to run a serious NFL operation. Look at how things are in Detroit. So I don't think Bill Belichick will sign up for this either. I mean, the name I've thrown out, and this is just a prediction, and it's a kind of bold, funny one more than anything. I bet you Jason Garrett gets an interview. That's really? Like what I tell me you can't see it. Like, tell me you can't.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
I think he'll get an interview.
You know who might?
A lot of people.
Kellen Moore.
A lot of people have thrown out Kellen Moore, obviously. That would be like Baby Garrett. And a lot of people, this is really far fetched, but have thrown out Jason Witten. Like he's the next Jason Garrett.
I please do that.
For any Eagles fans unaware, he's coaching high school football. Not that qualifies him, but I mean, just again, if you're curious for what he's doing,
he's going to coach a game without a headset, just like he ran that one time without the helmet on the field.
That was against the Eagles, and it was awesome. The Cowboys won that game. But
wow, how amazing!
Yeah, man,
yeah,
like
really made a big difference.
It's really, really, really bad. And this does not excuse him or exonerate him because he is making it worse, which is, should be charged against him. But right. I mean, who could thrive in this? And that's not to say like keep Mike McCarthy, but I feel for him. I have empathy for him on a human level.
You're up next.
Okay. I feel like I should go Cowboys now and you should go Eagles, right? Like we should kind of balance it out. I actually want your opinion on what the most like Cowboys thing that they've done is since we stopped podcasting. So like that could be bringing Zeke back, like in Cowboys, like in the funny meme way that you define them, but in a realistic meme way, like because a lot of people be like, oh, typical Cowboys when it's disconnected from reality. So like something that is actually tethered to reality that they actually did or have done or continue to do, that you look at and you're like, only these losers, man.
I think it has to be like the stories about, the tours and how football isn't like the top priority, which has been, a through line through previous conversations, not a new kind of thing. But I think that really kind of underscores what went wrong in the offseason in terms of the approach of how, there was that big Twitter thread. I always forget who did that, of like how the Cowboys another business that the Jones have and not that priority, which is very different from there's a lot of sports owners who are also probably similar thinking. That's not totally just the Cowboys, but there are a lot of also owners who are like, they have the one team and they actually truly, really care about that. And it's not just talk. They put their actions, like the Eagles, they're one of the highest spending teams, not even just, cap space, but like, total cash spending in the NFL, and are willing to, like eat big salaries that they, like Carson Wentz, and like when they make a mistake, they're not afraid to just
or the whole Chip Kelly era. Like let's trade Sam Bradford, let's trade DeMarco Murray, let's trade Byron.
They're willing to try things. Yeah, they're not going to be beholden to an artificial salary cap like the Cowboys are. So
and it's like what you've said before. I mean, I don't mean to just continue giving you credit, but like at the time of the Chip Kelly thing, at least for the Eagles, it's like, what's going to happen? Oh no, like we're not going to win the Super Bowl again. Like, oh man,
like people use the term "set the franchise back," and I was like, to what? How are they going to be set back?
And that's kind of where I'm at. And that's why I wanted to ask the question. Like, I mean, for anyone who's like 40 or younger, like you have all of the cons of being a Dallas Cowboys fan and none of the pros. You know what I'm saying? Like you only get the, like when they lose, like the memes and the jokes and the insults that your friends or coworkers or whoever like throw at you, but you don't have any of the like good times, right? Like, I mean, if you're an Eagles fan, like when things are really embarrassing, like they were last year, at least you're like, well, you know what? We won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and I went out with my friends that night, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you have that. Like you can hold on to that forever. And this team doesn't. Like this team is the most of course team of all time to me, and at least Dallas Cowboys team. And by that I mean like, of course that would happen. Like the inevitable, like the funniest possible thing that can happen against them does and continues to. That Derrick Henry went off. I mean, like absolutely went off against them was completely and totally of course. That the New Orleans Saints have lost 7 games in a row, none of them that are really competitive since blowing the doors off of them. I mean, is of course that they just lost to the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, after going on this in the middle of this 7-game losing streak, with the last win being against the Cowboys, and then that the Cowboys would act better than the Panthers and the Saints and be buyers at the trade deadline when the Panthers and Saints have one fewer win than they do, is the most of course thing of all time. I mean, it is. I'm not a wrestling fan. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. Like I was never into WWF or WWE. It just wasn't my thing or whatever. But I did watch the Vince McMahon documentary, and I get the like comparison that people make. Like, and I say that like that was literally my first exposure to that world and that time. And I get how people like equate them to the Cowboys because this is just a joke, man. Like, and the things I tweeted out a meme on the trade deadline day after the Mingo trade. I don't know if you saw. It was the scene from The Office when Pam is talking to Michael Scott and he's dating her mom. And she's like, stop dating my mom. And he just with like contempt says, I'm going to start dating her even harder. Like that's who Jerry Jones is right now. Like he's truly screwing with us. And like you mentioned the stadium tours thing, arguing with the fan hosts. I mean, that Trayvon Diggs argued with a local reporter after they lost to Big Brother Daddy San Francisco again. It's exhausting. It's truly difficult to keep track of now.
Can't say I hate to see it, honestly. I know you're down bad and like it can't hurt you almost in a way of how disappointing it is, but it's nice to see. I will say, speaking of course, I mean, like shame on you for thinking the Cowboys would actually finally break the NFC East division winner streak.
That would have
been
it's just
not going to happen ever. It's just not going to happen.
Now I'm kind of willing to believe that it's just never going to happen. But yeah, okay.
The worst thing you can do in the NFC East is win the NFC East.
Also, of course, Dan Quinn, like the chosen one that I was out on, and I'm very still content with that decision relative to what was happening with the Cowboys. Of course, Dan Quinn would go to Washington of all places and make it cool and fun and whatever. So, okay, you're up on a thing.
I'll go to the Eagles. We already talked about Saquon, so I guess I'll move over to the defense here, which it's been good, man. Like I was just looking up the numbers today. Gonna do a Q&A exchange here with Dave Halprin on Blogging the Boys, so you can check that out. And some of the numbers I was looking up, I was like, man, like for a defense that only ranks 4th to last in spending, so it's not even just who are the household names on the Eagles defense? They don't have like these they don't have like bona fide all pro kind of players there. Darius Slay is name cred, but he was also out last week. And he hasn't been my favorite player anyway, although he is having a good season relative to expectation. But anyway, Vic Fangio's Eagles defense this season, RJ, ranks 5th in success rate, 5th in opponent yards per play, 6th in opponent offensive points per game, 10th in defensive DVOA, and 12th in EPA per play. And I mentioned the spending thing. That's also with them having like bad turnover luck. They only had, I think, 2 prior to the Bengals game. And this year they only have 6 teams with fewer takeaways. Like they're not just relying. It's not like, they're getting all these turnovers and their defense is dominating. No, they haven't even had the takeaways, and they've been pretty awesome. And players who weren't expected to be great, like Zach Bond, who the Eagles signed. He was the 3rd player they signed in free agency. It was after Bryce Huff, who hasn't been good, and after Saquon. And everyone's like, okay, this is like a depth edge rusher kind of guy, whatever. And himself, Zach Bond, during his first press conference was like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to like getting back to rushing the passer after the Saints were kind of messing with me as an off-ball linebacker. And then on day 1 from Vic Fangio, we hear from him the first time, his press conference in the spring. He's asked about the linebacker position, inside linebacker, off-ball specifically. And he's like, Zach Bond. And everyone's like, what? Like no one expected that. And here he is. He's looking awesome. He has like the 2nd highest coverage grade on Pro Football Focus, like behind Fred Warner. Like it's insane how good that guy has been. And I think that's very much a product of Vic Fangio getting the most out of lesser talent and unestablished players. So this Eagles defense, which like the expectations for the year basically were just like, be solid. Just don't be a total disaster like you were at the end of last season. Just be competent. The offense can do the heavy lifting. They haven't faced the best quarterbacks, obviously, over this past 4-game stretch, although they did play well against Burrow. But they're legit.
I picked the Bengals in that game, and I really thought, oh man, this is going to be like the exposure of the Eagles or whatever, and it wasn't. And I agree with you, and I feel like what's most impressive is that it's happening in spite of all the like obvious things not working. Like the Nakobe Dean thing. I know he had the interception, right?
He has been working more recently.
Like, well, I mean, but he hasn't realized the like initial moment of euphoria is all. But granted, that was peak like Howie Roseman is a god, whatever. Like, but I mean, the Devin White thing didn't work out, right? Like all the some things like were these like huge whiffs, and you would think like, oh, with multiple huge whiffs, call them however many you want, the bottom would come out, but it hasn't. Like, and it's because you have an adult in the room running the defense, and I think that there are, I don't know how many we can name, but there's a handful of, I would say defensive coordinators is definitely the archetype of like when you get that dude and he's coordinating your defense, like it's going to be good. Vic Fangio is one. Dan Quinn is obviously another. Wade Phillips is another one of those guys. Jim Schwartz. Yeah. Like there's just some, like they can go anywhere and they will always find a way to be successful. And so it's smart to do the easy thing. And I think that if you allow me to kind of spin into my next thing, it is about the Eagles. I think that is a great quality of Nick Sirianni. Now, I'm going to
your boy.
I'm going to give Nick some credit on being less annoying this year, although the like I'm also upset that we didn't have the opportunity to talk after fighting with Eagles fans of all things.
Really bizarre.
So also like Nick, maybe like, you're not new around there. Like if you're going to fight with any fan base in the world, like maybe not the one to poke. Just, I mean, like
after you like barely beat the Browns by 4 points.
I know. So, and that you now have multiple games where you've done this to the fan base, the stadium in general. It's also not a good look, but he is the weirdest mix of like the most annoying person in the world and a really good football coach. And I think part of what makes him a really good football coach is, and we as a football society don't give enough credit to the like quote unquote walk around head coaches. People act like, well, what's he doing? He's not calling plays. And that can be a fair criticism at times. But I think that Nick is kind of a really good manager. I mean, what I'm about to say is going to sound really stupid, and it wouldn't be a proper mixtape episode without like an outlandish thing that I said about the Eagles happening. Doug Peterson won the Super Bowl, and in that sense, that makes him like untouchable and the first Super Bowl and all the stuff, whatever.
Bunch of injuries to that team.
Right. So, and not to
quarterback.
Not to take anything away. I think certainly if the Eagles were to win a Super Bowl under Nick Sirianni, my point is even more proven. I think like on the whole, Nick Sirianni is like arguably. It's also Andy Reid's unique, but like he is one of the best coaches in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. Like I feel confident in that. Like they are so successful under him. And we are so quick to give all the credit here, there, wherever. And I feel like Eagles fans are now chief among this group. Like nobody wants to give Nick Sirianni any credit whatsoever. Like the guy deserves more than his fair share at this point. And he has, to that point, also, incited a lot of things and dug his own grave a lot of times, and he's made things a lot more harder than they have to be. But I think he's a top
key point.
He's a top in the NFC. I think the only coaches who I think are 100% better than him are Kyle Shanahan, and I'm not willing to go there on Dan Campbell yet.
Wow,
not yet.
I think the thing with Sirianni, there is a case to be made. Obviously, that he's deserves more credit. He's underappreciated because you just look at the win-loss record. It's obviously great. It's like it's hard to argue with that when you just look at that alone. But I think you have to count for the feel. You have to count for the league itself. Said Howie Roseman did a better job in 2022. Like they gave Howie Executive of the Year. And I think me going into this season, I projected the Eagles to go 3-14. I felt like that was a little high, but I was like, I'm looking at the schedule here, and I'm looking at their talent. I believe in their talent. I don't really, but at the same time, I still have them winning like one game in the playoffs and then losing because I think as that margin for error shrinks, I don't trust Nick Sirianni, especially when it comes to game management. Now this
sucks, but that doesn't mean he's not good. I mean, like just because you don't trust him doesn't mean he isn't good at what he's doing.
I think, but you even mentioned it in there in terms of like making it harder than it has to be. I think there is something to like he might bring the talent down a little bit. I think he's been at his best this season in game, especially. I think the culture stuff is reset. I give him credit for that. That's rebounded from where it was late last year. That's absolutely relevant. I give him total credit for that. And I've also been willing to give him credit for that in the past as like one of the best things he does. But like the game management hasn't been good. And I'm worried it could bring the talent down. Like at the very least, I just need him to stay out of the way. And I think he did that really well in a couple of these wins, specifically against the Giants and the Bengals. Like just don't mess it up. Like you don't have to, ideally you want your coach to give you an edge and get more out of less. But like I will settle for just don't mess it up. Like don't drag the team down. And that's my concern.
I get that, but like that's not how like what this team is. You know what I mean? Like in a perfect world,
it is what it is. There's a ton of talent. Just don't screw it up.
I trust him. I'm looking at other teams. To use that word, I trust him. I trust that he will get a better performance out of his team more than I do Sean McDermott, more than I do Zach Taylor. Like to use some other coaches who generate a lot of buzz, obviously. More than I do Jim Harbaugh. I've been so unimpressed with that. I mean, it's been so boring.
I think Sean McVay, who is not my boy, especially when it comes to game
not our boy. That's an us thing.
When it comes to game management, but he is a really good. I think getting more out of less, and obviously scheme and all that.
We every now and then offer a take on the mixtape, and I want to get this in here so it's on the record. Mike McDaniel is so overrated, and nobody coming for him is proof that nobody cares about the Dolphins. Like they are so bad, and nobody talks about it ever. And I've actually in things I've written said like if the Eagles were having that season, Nick Sirianni would be like the leading subject point on SportsCenter and NFL Live every single day. But like it's like it's the Dolphins, whatever. It's like whatever. So that was my thing. Go Nick Sirianni. Yeah.
I guess then my next thing would be like, what's going on with let's talk all things like Cowboys quarterback situation in terms of like Dak Prescott obviously not playing this week, might go on IR. We'll see. Jerry said that is going to happen. And there's some tough games coming up too. You play like what, the Texans next? Who else is? I don't know. Some other tough teams. I don't know. The Cowboys
Texans
schedule.
and then at Commanders the Sunday before Thanksgiving.
Okay, so missing some key games here.
And then the Giants on Thanksgiving, and then the Bengals on Monday Night Football in the Simpsons alternate cast.
I did see that. I have no comment on that. I mean, I love the Simpsons. Nothing against the Simpsons, but just
never seen an episode.
Anyway, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I don't know what I was doing in the 90s that like I wasn't into
it's
WWE and the Simpsons. I mean, but whatever. To answer your question, it looks likely.
Wait, I wasn't even done posing it. So yeah, Dak hurt. I wasn't done. Dak is hurt, but he was playing, I think, as you have said, many people I've seen say, worst football of his career prior to getting hurt. And again, kind of goes into the Mike McCarthy thing, not really set up for success in the most helpful way, but still like not making the most of the situation and turning the ball over way too much. So I want to talk about Dak here, and then but I also want to talk about like long term, like how you're feeling about him and what this kind of season he had, but also what's going on for this week in terms of who starts, who should start.
More than one thing can be true. It was absolutely the right decision to pay Dak. It took way too long. I said before the Eagles paid Jalen Hurts that was the time to do it. He was eligible. You could have done it right then. And Jalen Hurts is what APY? 52 million APY. Is that correct? Or 51?
Something like that.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, and Dak's at 60. I mean, so like it's stupid. I mean, like this will get forgotten as we get further and further away from it. They signed him on literally the day that the season began. Like
I remember,
like literally in the morning shows on that Sunday is when it happened, and it was so dumb and it was ridiculous, and they just wanted the attention. So, and good for Dak. I mean, good for Dak, and I know you've given him props for this for not bending the knee, and he could have wielded even more power, like if you think about it. But
unprecedented amount if he
right, but he so like it sounds stupid, and there's the like he sucks people that will whatever, but like he signed for $60 million a year, and it was a team-friendly discount, like in the like grand overall potential scheme. But to get away from that, because we've discussed that ad nauseum, I think that sometimes we can look at quarterbacks and look at like break points in their careers. And I think for Dak, 2019 is one of them, which incidentally was the final year of his rookie contract. That was when John Kitna was his quarterback's coach, and that was the first year of Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator. And he really turned into a different kind of passer, a much more aggressive aerial passer. Before then, it was kind of the Zeke show, and he was just viewed as a game manager, bus driver, whatever. So this is unquestionably the worst year of his career in that time, like the post of evolution. There's still a case to be made. It's his career on the whole, but that 2017 season was really, really tough. Obviously the Zeke suspension didn't help, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, not making chicken salad, which you can definitely put on Dak, and that contract, while it's unfair, it is kind of fair to say, dude, you're getting all the money. You're the quarterback and the most important person. Like you have, and look, I have said many times that Dak doesn't step a single toe out of line, which is why when he said the thing about the people throwing stuff at officials a few years back, that was so out of character for Dak when they lost to the Niners in the playoffs. And do you remember when they were throwing beer bottles and stuff? So Dak has had a few moments like that this year alone at training camp. And obviously the vibes have not been great. Dak was asked about like, well, fans hate everything, blah, blah. And he said, well, you need to get over it. Like, and I'm paraphrasing. He was like, it probably hurt us more than it hurt you because we're on the team. And it's like, hey, now chill out a little bit, Dak, because this has been our team a lot longer than it's been yours or CD's or whatever. Like, I know a lot of you grew up rooting for the team, but like there's no wrong way to be a fan. So you can't tell me that I have to get over something. Not that I want to harp on it, but that was the first like, whoa, that's a little bit interesting kind of comment from Dak. And then that he said he got caught on camera saying that they suck. I mean, like this past week, which is,
he said more than that, but yes,
I know, but like
that.
It was a very, very, very left foot moment for Dak. And so like everything, and I don't look, it's been exhausting to be him. Like surely like there's been incredible wealth associated with it. There's no doubt about that. But like the dude couldn't even properly announce that he was engaged to be married without, idiots on the internet taking over and making the Instagram posts like toxic and whatever. So I'm willing to give him some leniency, but I'm also in a football sense, willing to say that I would be lying if I said I didn't have concerns now about like health. I mean, it's been this here, this there. I mean, obviously he had the shoulder, whatever it was in 2021 where he missed a singular game. obviously that's after the ankle in 2020. He had in 2022 the thumb issue. I mean, so like some of these are weird, happenstance, coincidence things. But yeah, I mean, like I'd be lying if you can't be 0% worried. If you're only 5% worried, that's fine, but you can't be 0% worried. In full honesty, right now, it was still the right decision to pay him. To be completely clear, Cooper Rush is going to start, which is insanely stupid. And
is that official? Like,
that's how
I haven't seen it officially said. I know that is the expectation.
That's how they're talking. I mean, that's how the team is talking.
I'm not doubting it. I just wanted confirmation.
But to add to that point, it is stupid, and it's not Cooper's fault because Cooper Rush helped that 2022 team, obviously, but this team is not in that spot. Not only not in that spot, like literally they were 0-1 when Cooper had to come in, but they had maybe the best defense in the NFL, and they don't have that right now.
And a running game, to help.
Yeah, and you're just gonna throw this like time away. And look, Trey Lance is not under contract either because this is the final year of Cooper's deal. But at the very least, like justify the pick, man. Like at the very least, make it fun. And that they can't start Trey Lance because he hasn't developed is such an indictment against their overall process on what was obviously a bad trade the moment that they executed it, and that it all is happening in the same week on the same days that they sent another 4th-round pick to one of the worst wide receiver or for one of the worst wide receivers in the NFL to the Carolina Panthers. It's peak hilarity at this point.
Yeah, I think first on Dak, he turns 32 next year. Like it's not ancient in today's NFL for quarterbacks, but it's not young either. So that's that on him. But I think actually how the Cowboys have handled their quarterback configuration makes sense. With Cooper should be the backup on game day because you feel like he can come in if Dak has to miss time within a given game and kind of
if Dak's got to miss a series or something, totally,
sure,
completely with you.
But yeah, if we're talking about a longer stretch, at that point, especially with the outlook kind of looking bleak, it's let's see what Trey Lance has. Maybe he can give us a spark. Maybe he can be the answer in the future. Unlikely, but there's possibility there where what Cooper Rush is. He's not anything other than a decent backup quarterback to have on game day. So if I were the Cowboys, I'd be playing Lance.
Even if there weren't a possibility, even if you don't believe there was one, you paid for it believing that there is. It's like ordering food for the table and being like, I'm really hungry, but I'm good. Like I know I paid for the appetizer, but these potato skins just they aren't hitting for me. So just take them back, throw them away. I'm good. It's stupid.
Yeah. So anyway, Eagles played the Cowboys in 2022 with Cooper Rush, and that did not really go so well for him. We'll see how that is this week. The line is at where's it at now? -7. Opened at 6.5, and that's on the road. And for the context, by the way, Eagles 7-point road favorites in Dallas, where they've not won since 2017. The Eagles opened as 6.5 home favorites against the Jags. For context, that's pretty brutal.
I mean,
by the way, the most probably disrespectful line I've ever seen was last week when the Saints were something like 11-point or whatever 7, whatever it was, road favorites.
No, the worst was when the Chiefs were dogs against the Niners. That was so stupid. That was free money.
No, that's dumb. I'm saying this was so pathetic for Panthers fans to be massive underdogs at home to a team that has lost 6 games in a row, and they won. So whatever. But anyway.
So also to contextualize where the Cowboys are at in their funk, it's difficult to put this in a tweet, but I tried the other day. So the last game they won at home was the Saturday night win against Detroit last year, the penultimate game of the regular season, the controversial ending. That was the night that Jimmy Johnson went into the Ring of Honor, if you recall. They have lost every home game since, and not only lost, but been humiliated.
That's so funny because they were so good at home. How does that just flip?
Well, I mean, I'm not a believer in curses or anything like that, but maybe there's a new curse. You know what I mean? They've lost every, and not only have they lost every single game, but what's the one good? I'm legitimately asking you, what has happened to the Cowboys since that moment in time to where you're damn, that sucks, or man, not even damn, that sucks. Oh man, I wish that hadn't happened. Name one thing. The big external free agent who they signed, Eric Kendricks, agreed to terms with the 49ers earlier in that day. I mean, name the thing, the one thing. It could be small.
It wasn't even it changed from season to season because it was still last year in the playoffs. So the Packers came to town. It was the same team from last year that still had that happen, and then this carry over into the next season. So I don't know. It's weird. But I think you're up next on your 4th thing.
Well, I'm supposed to get a call. I tried to delay it. So if
from who?
And it's a radio hit. So if you and I have to take a break in real time,
big time.
we might have to do that.
Interview during the. Okay.
No, I didn't. We were scheduled to be done with this by now, but you had to delay it on a last second sort of notice thing. So we might have to, in terms of you and I and our recording, pause this and come back. But just heads up.
When? Now?
In a moment. It was supposed to happen at 12:15, but I texted and asked if I could delay, and I haven't heard back. So I'll bring up my thing, and then we'll kind of figure this out as we go along. I mean, my thing on the Cowboys is we haven't had any podcasts to be able to like say these things out loud. Like I still put videos out on our YouTube channel and stuff, and I know you've been doing stuff with Shield the Ringer, and that's awesome. But like, man, I legitimately like football less. And I feel the way you seem to feel near the tail end of last season when the collapse was happening. Like I thought it was a bid at first. And when we did the mixtape before that Cowboys-Eagles game, when Dallas destroyed them on Sunday Night Football, and it's not just that I clearly like the Cowboys less, but like, it's like, okay, I guess, I could either watch Monday Night Football.
No, it's definitely a real thing.
Or the new season of The Diplomat. Like I could put Monday Night Football on the iPad and just kind of have it on. Well,
it makes sense because it just doesn't matter. Like it's you want to watch the other game because like, oh, this could matter. I'm rooting against the other team for seeding or whatever.
Or like, just to like, my team's better than that. You know what I mean? Like my team needs one of those, or my team should be doing this. Like it's all so like meaningless and boring. And I mean, like, and I think that Cowboys fans feel that way. And so like, a lot of them, not all. I think it's stupid because we often do that. We act like one opinion speaks as the voice of the fan base, right? Like, oh, I'm seeing Cowboys fans say this, but I'm using my thing to tell Eagles fans how Cowboys fans in their lives may be feeling. You've heard us say before, like, oh, whatever, and there will always be some Cowboys fans who are like, this is our year, blah blah blah. I named the time I've ever been like that, but. What I will say is like, man, like this is a different kind of detachment. Like maybe they hire Ben Johnson and maybe, they do enough to rope me in over the offseason. I'm not going to say that that's impossible.
They will. I will guarantee actually they will do that.
Well, maybe,
in terms of the roping you in.
Hopefully we're mixtaping by then and you can, document it at least. But at least the way we're experiencing it right now, this is a different level of disgust and annoyance and just like, I mean, if they weren't such a big part of my life, and obviously they're my living, but like if even beyond that, like I'm going to the Cowboys Texans game with my dad. I'm really excited about it, and I haven't been to one in the stands in a very long time, and I'm excited about that and going with my dad, but it's just like, man, like this and it ruins the best time of year. Like it's like the fall weather's taking a while to cooperate fully, but it's like, okay, yeah, the Christmas music's playing at the stores and whatever, but it's just like the coolest part of the year is ruined.
I'm so sorry for you. I feel so bad. No, I feel good about it. I do think, though, to an optimistic point, I do think things could be a lot different next year with a different coach, depending on who they hire. I think that I would find it hard pressed, but maybe I'm wrong, that they will do more than nothing at all next offseason. Although maybe not on the best start if the moves are going to be like the Mingo trade, which I think is very insane. Not even just because like,
okay,
it's not about this year.
Now you have to pause and we're going to have to come back and I'll send you a link in like 10 minutes.
Wow. What a cliffhanger.